hideous creature.
Hey guys, Hideous C here with another game review. This player just recently hit level 30 and was placed into silver. We'll be talking a bit about this game specifically, but I'll spend most of my time talking about some foundational concepts for newer players to focus on, using examples from this game to illustrate. We'll be talking about champion pools, why League is different from Street Fighter, winning your lane versus winning the game, and one or two other things. Thanks for checking out this video. Let's jump in. Okay, so you mentioned that this game you got bullied a lot, and that's not that surprising. Varus is a pretty major early lane bully. He's pretty much going to win this lane, early on anyway. Your strength is going to come later in team fights as Orianna, and I'll talk about Orianna a bit more as a champion pick later. But right now I just kind of want to talk about this matchup specifically and how you can think about it in terms of what you are going to want to be buying and approaching the matchup in general. The thing to keep in mind is that Varus's main strength is going to be poke. That's what his kit is designed to do, and it does it very well. Your main set of strengths is AoE burst and your ult CC. Well, and the slow from your other. You provide a lot of AoE burst and CC, and that comes into play mostly during team fights. So Orianna isn't usually going to be winning lane unless she's getting a lot of jungle attention. And you're definitely not going to be winning lane versus someone like Varus, who is able to just sit way out of your spell range and poke you down and farm at his leisure, and he never has to really put himself in danger. Realistically, this is not a lane you're going to win outright, at least not in the 1v1 sense. You win this lane by denying Varus kills and keeping up as best you can in farm, and playing safe until your time to shine comes around, which will be, mid-game when skirmishes start, and late game when team fights come around. So, that being said, it doesn't make a lot of sense that you go for double Dorans. You buy double Dorans if you're going for early lane aggression. They're very strong early game items, but obviously they don't build into anything. And so, the reason people buy them is because they're betting that investing that extra 400 or 450, depending on which item you're buying, that extra chunk of gold is going to result in a greater income, right? So you're investing this much gold because you're betting that you're going to be able to go out and get a kill or two, and so that's going to make that investment worth it. But in this lane matchup, that's never going to happen unless Varus does something incredibly stupid, and he does way later on. But by then, it doesn't matter. The double Dorans doesn't really have that much of an effect on it. In a matchup like this, you are going to be better off just going right into your core items, or even buying boots. Honestly, picking up early set of boots versus somebody like Varus can be strong because he relies so heavily on his poke. Boots enables you to dodge his Q a little bit easier, even his W, and definitely his ult a little bit easier because you have more movement speed. That makes it harder for him to hit his skill shots. Okay, so I want to talk for a couple of minutes here about champion pool and just the way you can decide which champions you're going to play. Now, people play League for different reasons, and if you're just playing League for fun, then the only important thing to keep in mind when choosing a champion is the champion that you find enjoyable. So if you're wanting to be casual, then ignore this completely. But you said that you are wanting to seriously invest in improving at the game, and so this advice is directed to people like that want to just get better at the game. And the best way to do that, to get better at League of Legends, is to try to avoid complicated champions or champions that rely heavily on game knowledge and coordination to succeed. So Orianna is kind of in that second camp. She's not a super mechanically intense champion, more than some, but not crazy like Yasuo or Zed or some others. She's relatively simple mechanically, but to really shine, Orianna relies on her team a lot to set up really powerful team fight ults. Usually, if you watch, especially like pro level Oriannas, or even just high level Orianna play, they're throwing their ball on their tank, who's then going in, and then Orianna ults. And I'll show a moment from that in the game here in just a second, or later on in the video. But she relies on coordination, and that's both from your teammates' perspective, like they know that you're playing Orianna, so they're waiting for you to hit them with your ball, so that then they're going to go in. They're expecting that to be on your mind, and they're on the same page with you just intuitively, because they understand the champion, and you're looking for that too, because you know that's what Orianna's strengths are. And that's just not going to happen a lot at low-level games, to be honest. You're going to have a lot of people that are just playing 1v1s, and they're playing their own, they're playing the League of Legend, singular, instead of League of Legends. Uh, and so you're just kind of rolling the dice a little bit on the off chance that maybe you get a team that understands Orianna and is going to play around her. The other issue with Orianna, or actually it's kind of the same issue, it's just the other side of the coin, is that while Orianna is certainly a really strong champion and a very impactful champion, and you can be strong just solo, without your team. It will happen sometimes. Any champion can. It's not as easy as with another champion. And you mentioned that you play a lot of Annie, and I'm only really having access to like your ranked stats, but I'm looking through, and you're playing some Annie, a lot of Orianna. Looks like you're playing some Fizz recently, but Annie in particular is a dead simple champion. There's almost nothing to getting her combos right. But not only that, Annie can start and end a team fight. Either, not usually both, but either or. She can start a team fight for her team, and it's a really easy initiation to follow. Tibbers' stun is super easy to know what to do with, and it doesn't rely on anybody else. You're not waiting for Malphite to ult in so that then you can ult and then your team can follow up. You're just going and you flash Tibbers' ult, and your team knows what to do if they have any sort of game sense at all. And same thing with at the end of a fight. If somebody else starts the fight, Annie can come in and clean up super easy. She's a champion that it's really easy to put your team on your back as Annie. She does huge bursts. She has CC. She has AOE. It's not tricky to be able to carry a game as Annie. Carrying a game as Orianna is much more difficult for the reasons I mentioned before. It requires a lot of coordination, it requires a lot of game knowledge and being able to predict how things are going to go so you can place your ball correctly. There's just a lot more to succeeding with Orianna. So if you're going to play, or if your goal is to get better at League of Legends, you are better off playing the Annies rather than the Oriannas. You are better off taking a champion that there is just not a lot complicated about playing that champion successfully, so that you can focus on the bigger picture. And that's kind of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about for the rest of the time here. So you can focus on the bigger picture of the game, and you're not trying to figure out the complicated mechanics of the champion. You're not trying to get so much into the head game of your teammates and trying to read their minds and letting them read your intentions. That stuff will come later on, and Orianna's a strong champion to pick up maybe later on down the road. But stick to your Oriannas. Same thing with support. If you find yourself playing support, play Thresh. Play Leona, don't play Thresh. Same situation. Leona is dead simple, and she's easy to read for your teammates. Thresh he's not that tricky to read, but he's very complicated. He has maybe a low barrier of entry. It's not that tricky to pick up Thresh and do okay with him. It's really complicated to get really good at Thresh. Whereas Leona, she definitely has a skill curve, but it's much shallower. And she has maybe not quite as much impact at the top of that skill ramp as Thresh can, but it's pretty close. Morgana's another good one. This looks like maybe a support Morgana game. She's a pretty dead simple support as well. So play these two. Tarek's another good one. Janna's another good one. Soraka's another good one. Pick one or two of those guys and stick with them, and avoid the complicated ones like Bard and Thresh, Braum to a degree. There's some others that just require more game knowledge and more mechanical ability, so that you can focus on learning to play support rather than focusing on learning to play Thresh while you're trying to learn to play support. I would avoid Fizz. I would avoid Orianna for now. Blitzcrank's a great pick. Jinx is good. So yeah, for mid, stick with Annie. If you want to play another champion, if you want to have a backup, Morgana's a good option. And yeah, if you have questions about that, you can hit me up on Reddit or on my website, and I can give you some more suggestions. But I hope that concept makes sense. Okay, I'm jumping to the beginning of laning phase here for this next part. So what I want to talk about here is kind of just the economics of League. So League is it's a game of money. At first glance, it might look like a fighting game, but if you play League like Street Fighter, where you're just looking to fight with your opponent, like you're kind of doing here. This isn't necessarily a mistake, but just to illustrate my point here, you give up 2 CS for that harass, and that's never worth it. It's never, ever, ever worth it. If you can get a kill, it's worth giving up CS. Or if you can force Varus out of lane, it's worth giving up CS. Because the idea is at that point then, now you're going to be able to get more gold than the gold that you gave up. But if you're just giving up gold to hit him with your auto attacks, then you're falling behind. Assuming he's CSing with any competence. you are trying to outgold him, not outplay him. And outgolding Varus is more about intelligence and patience and just deliberate rock bottom foundational farming skills than it is about any kind of sick mechanics or big outplays or anything like this. And that's the other thing too, with Varus just outranges you, and so he's always going to be able to win trades anyway. You are only going to win this lane in particular by outfarming him. But in any lane, your first priority is to outgold your opponent. Sometimes it's easy to get kills, and so you can easily outgold your opponent by going for those kills and those 1v1s. But on any matchup, you focus on farming first. You focus on getting every single minion, and then when the opportunity presents itself for a kill, you take that, and that's kind of your bonus gold. So your minions are your 8 to 5 day job, and you do that, and you get your salary, and then the kills are your bonus at the end of the year for a job well done. And that kind of happens here. So when we go to 12 minutes, this is kind of the bonus that I'm talking about. And again, kind of especially in this matchup. Is this really what you need to be looking for? So Varus ults you, and you know, I don't know what he was thinking was going to happen there. You just back off. And then he makes the mistake of going super ham, and you just delete him. So what happened there was you didn't go for that. You didn't like make some crazy initiation, flash Ori ult, or some thing that he never saw coming. The dude walked up to you into your spell range, underestimated your damage output, and you murdered him. That's the kind of kill that you want to be getting. You want to wait until Varus screws up, and then you murder him. As you get better at the game, you will get better at identifying those mistakes, and not even mistakes that maybe lead to an immediate kill, but a mistake that allows you to chunk half of his health while he only gets a quarter of your health. And then the next time he screws up, it's even more devastating. Or the mistake that allows you to zone him out of CS, and so now you're 3 CS up, and that's 100 gold or 75 gold lead, and that. Then you turn that into a 150 gold lead, and that turns into, you're able to finish your major item before he's able to finish his major item. Maybe if it's a 30-second difference, but that's all it takes, because now you can win now you have your guys are able to force dragon team fight before they can. You are wanting to look for Varus to mess up rather than for you to try to force a big play. On any matchup, again, this is not just specific to Orianna. Because what happened here is Varus, he's moving forward, he's looking to make a big play. I'm not sure what he thought was going to happen again, because he doesn't have his ult or anything to really back up his initiation. But he moves in to make the big play. He's thinking, I got this Ori, she can't do anything to me, I'm just going to walk up and kill her. And so he's putting himself out here. If you mess up and you miss all your spells, or you don't fight back, then yeah, he wins this. But he doesn't know that you're going to mess up. He's banking that you're going to mess up, which is rolling the dice. He's rolling the dice, I hope she messes up, I'm going for it. You don't mess up, and he dies, so his gamble did not pay off. You didn't gamble at all, you were just focusing on farming back here, and you made a completely safe kill. You didn't have to risk anything for it. As often as you can do that, the better. Or the more often you can do that, the better. The more gold and kills you can pick up without having to take big risks, the better. Always wait for your opponent to screw up before you go in. And the reason for that is just that you're taking the gamble out of your play. You're putting the control of your win-loss ratio into your hands as much as possible, because you're taking the dice rolls out of it as much as you can. And what that ends up doing, especially as you're focusing on CS and taking smart kills, you're looking to create a gold lead. And kind of going back to League as an economic game. Gold leads to items, which leads to power, which leads to winning. If you have more gold than your opponent, you are usually going to beat him. So it doesn't matter if you have 3 kills up on your opponent. If he has a 50 CS lead on you, he's still ahead, right? So, and vice versa too. If he has 3 kills on you and you have 50 CS, then you're still even with him, or maybe even a little bit ahead. So your focus is to outgold him. And sometimes you'll be able to do that, through map objectives. You'll get a tower, and now your whole team's up gold. So you're always looking for opportunities to have a gold advantage. That's your big picture, because the ultimate goal of League is to kill this. And the way you do that is by, by beating the other team or taking objectives from the other team. And the way you do that is by winning fights or just outplaying them or whatever, being stronger than them. And the way you do that, or the easiest way to do that, is to have more gold than them, because you have access to more power, which makes winning fights easy, which makes taking objectives easy, which makes killing the Nexus easy. So don't focus on trying to kill Varus. Just because you can cast a spell or hit Varus with an auto attack doesn't mean you should. Often it's better to just farm and bide your time until he messes up, like he did there at 12 minutes. Okay, another thing that you need to start thinking about as you are getting better at this game is broadening your focus. So, mid lane is your primary focus, but you have to keep the rest of the map on your mind. So, two things happen here. Kha'Zix comes in, he's looking for a gank first, which you see him on your ward, and that's good, so you avoid the gank. But then he walks into your jungle. And he ends up taking this, and he ends up getting a ward down. He ends up making a significant inroad into your jungle here, which then leads to him later on being able to invade and getting a pretty significant lead over Malphite. Now, I think you're probably aware that he's here, but look at this. Look at this. This is a free kill. This is a free kill. If you cast your ball over and ult W, he's at least super low. If you are able, you could even go super ham here and flash over and ignite him, and he's dead. This is free. And you don't know it because you don't know how to have the vision. And it's a knowledge thing. You saw him walk back here, or you should have seen him walk back here, because he was still in your ward vision when he went around the corner. So you need to still be watching where he goes. At the very least, you should be pinging that he's back here to let your team know. Because for all you know, he's going down to bot lane to gank through Tribush. And Lucian's already gone, but they could potentially tower dive. So you need to let your team know that Varus is in your jungle. You have a pink ward that you haven't thrown down. The pink ward early on, unless you're really confident that you can maintain an aggressive position in this lane safely, the pink ward is great to throw down in here or here to defend against things like this. Kha'Zix is an early aggressive jungler, while Malphite takes more time to ramp up until he gets strong. And you can see that here, Malphite level 3 versus Kha'Zix level 5. So if he's ahead. He's able to do this really safely, as long as Malphite's the only one he has to worry about anyway. And so if you have a ward here, you throw your pink ward here, you'll see him coming in, and you can respond to it. Then this is a free kill again. So you need to be aware of things like this. You need to be warding so that you can see stuff like that. You need to be looking up and seeing that Malphite is up here so that Kha'Zix knows. And Kha'Zix can see that because Malphite's in vision, so Kha'Zix knows that there's no one in this jungle. Because he can see you, he can see Malphite, he knows Lucian just came back, and he can see everybody but Lucian, and he knows Lucian just respawned. Or just, just recalled. And so he knows that he's totally safe to do this unless you react. Okay, I'm going to jump forward a little bit to expand on that point about expanding your scope, because throughout this entire game you almost never leave mid lane. That's bad in general, but it's especially bad for a champion like Orianna, who really relies on working with her teammates to succeed and to have the most impact. So at this point in the game, Jax is split pushing like a madman. Your bot lane has lost pretty hard. Both of those lanes are being pushed in pretty constantly, and you just keep returning mid. Now, protecting this turret is important, but at a certain point it becomes, it is diminishing returns on this. So, yeah, you could stay here and defend this mid turret for a while, and for a while turns out to be, about now, because these two end up killing you here in a second. So, your, the effectiveness of doing this is just less and less as the game goes on. And by that I mean, you would be having much more impact on swinging this game back in your team's favor by letting these two have this turret and going and killing Jax, for example, or going and destroying and counter ganking this and killing Kha'Zix and getting Lucian some gold. That would do a lot more for your team than saving this turret. This almost doesn't even matter anymore. The fact that you're still here clinging to this turret is helping them win. So I'm going to use this Jax split push as just kind of an example of what I mean, and how you can see situations develop early on if you're paying attention, and how you can kind of predict them to set yourself up to roam a bit and create some impact for your or on the game as a whole, as opposed to just tunnel visioning on your lane. So this split push has been going on for a couple of minutes, and you could, or not a couple of minutes, but almost a minute now, and you could see it developing. You could see the situation that Gangplank is in right now. You could see it developing all the way back at 1740. So I'm going to jump back to there. Okay, so right now, the lane has, well, it's going to push. Even if Jax wasn't here, this lane is going to push. And this is the kind of thing, you just want to be constantly checking and being aware of the situation in the other lanes. So if you look at this lane, even if Jax isn't here, which way is it going to push? Which way is this wave going to push? Well, because of Riot's changes, if this team has a level advantage or a turret advantage, you can pretty much safely predict that the minions, all things being equal, are going to push towards you. And so I'm not sure if you guys, I think the level advantage is pretty even right now. Maybe they have a slight edge, but there's a turret advantage in the lane. Jax has already taken one turret. So that means that his minions are going to be taking a little bit less damage. So if the minion waves are even, his minion wave is going to tend to push. And over time, that'll build up into a big wave, just by the way the minions work. His waves will catch up, and they'll overpower your waves. And by the time it gets to here, it'll be 2.5, 3 waves strong. And that's a big enough wave to start threatening the turret all by itself. So even if Jax isn't here and things are even, it's going to be pushing. And that's good to be aware of, because if you guys decide you want to group up and push, you need to be aware of what the pressure is in the other lanes. So it's not building up behind your back and you're fighting in their jungle and all of a sudden you have a mini wave crashing at the door of your base or something. Okay, so that's to be aware of, but that's not the case. All things aren't equal. There's more minions. He has more minions, so he's got a full wave here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with the cannon, and then he has the remnants of his last wave, 1, 2, 3, 4 minions, 2 melees and 2 casters. So that's a 10 minion wave, maybe a 9 minion wave if this one goes down. I don't think it will. So that's a 10 to 6 or 11 to 7 advantage, which means that even if even without the minion advantage changes for preseason, this wave is going to push pretty quick. And Jax is with it. And Jax wants to split push. So the second you see Jax going up here, you know that he's at the very least, he's wanting to set this wave up to split push quickly. Now, well, I will talk about a couple more things, I guess, before I talk about some further interpretation. So as you're looking at this, again, you're even just glancing at the minimap, and you click up here real quick, and you see that's a situation, and you file it away. Okay, that's what's developing. Jax is creating a split push situation. You know that Jax has been beating Gangplank, so Gangplank is unlikely to be able to stop Jax on his own. Malphite is on this side of the map, so that might be helpful. But even Malphite's behind, and he's not, he probably, even with the two of them, they might not be able to stop Jax, honestly. He might be able to 2v1 them at this point. Malphite does have 4 kills, I guess, so I don't know. They probably can't kill him regardless. So if they both were to respond and stop Jax, maybe it would be alright. But that's not what ends up happening. Malphite is clearing his jungle and not really paying attention. So GP can't do it. And you know that Jax wants to split push. That's one thing that Jax is really good at. He's good at split pushing because he has good wave clear when he gets items. And he is extremely good at 1v1ing. So in his mind, he's thinking, I want to kill this turret. The only person likely to come to stop me is GP. If more people respond, I can probably get away. But if it's just Gangplank, I can kill Gangplank and take this turret. So, you know that's what he wants to do. And so again, you can kind of file all that information away. Okay, Jax is up here, he's got a big minion wave, and Jax is a split pusher. So there's a good chance that he's just going to keep split pushing, which means he's going to be on my side of the map. So that means I need to respond to that somehow. Okay, so what are the different options of what might happen? Option 1, Jax might set up, just to set this wave up to split push on its own, so he might kill these two, and then maybe he kills this next wave or part of this next wave, and that sets that minion wave up to slow push. And that means the minions will keep building up because they have a numbers advantage, and every time they meet an enemy wave, they'll overpower it, and by the time that, and in the time that it takes for them to overpower it, their next wave is caught up, and now they have an even bigger numbers advantage, and then it crashes into this turret and does significant damage to it, or maybe even takes it. Or at very least forces one of your team to come up and deal with it and farm the wave. He might be doing that, and you'll see this tactic more and more as you climb. Jax sets up a slow push, sets up the wave to push as a big wave to push, and then he roams. because he knows that somebody has to come deal with that wave, and that might create a situation, you know, where they can maybe group and take mid 5v4, worst case scenario, because someone is top dealing with the big minion wave. That's not something you're probably going to run into a lot in low-level games. Excuse me. But it's an option, so be aware of it. The other option is that maybe he just keeps straight on split pushing all the way down, and that is what ends up happening. So if that's the case, there's a couple of responses to that you need to be aware of. One of them is defensive. If Jack split pushes down to here, that opens up a lot of roaming options for him again. If Gangplank shows up and maybe Jax decides he doesn't really want to chest his luck, fighting Gangplank when, just in the open lane, he's going to look here and he's going to see that Varus is here and that Varus has a poke advantage. He's going to see your turret's low, and maybe he just decides to duck through Tribush, come down through blue buff, or maybe even just down through the river, whatever. And he comes, and this is where he's likely to come. He's going to come through here, and he's going to dive you as Varus pushes the wave into your turret. And between him and Varus, they can easily kill you and take the turret. So you need to be aware that that's an option. If Jax is coming down here, there's a good chance he could cut through your jungle and try to murder you. So to respond to that, you need to throw your ward down. Your ward is on cooldown, so if you don't have a ward, then you just need to start playing really defensively. Maybe at that point you just are like, okay, so if I don't have the vision to know where Jax is and he's able to kill me, maybe that means I just give this turret up now. I'm going to go farm Wraiths or Razor Beaks, and or I'm just going to sit on this turret and wait for the wave to push here because this is safe. Jax is unlikely to be able to dive and kill me here. That might be a little extreme for this point in the game to just give it up, but you definitely probably want to come back here on this side of the turret so that you can respond quicker if Jax does that. And and you're not just going to do it right now once you see Jax come up here, but if Jax gets to here and disappears, then man, yeah, you better start reacting defensively, because there's a good chance that he's looking mid and saying, oh my gosh, I can dive this with Varus. And then by the time that happens, Vayne ends up coming, so it would be a 3v1. So you can see it and start responding defensively, or you can see it and respond aggressively. And you do throw your ward down here. It was your second charge of your warding trinket. So you do throw your ward down here, and that's good, but again, throwing it down here is probably better at this point, because both side lanes are pushing, and that opens up the jungle for roaming through the jungle. Okay, so your other option besides responding defensively is responding offensively. So Jax has been pounding on Gangplank all game, and you're Orianna, you're good in a skirmish and a team fight, you synergize well with your teammates, so you're looking for opportunities to go to other lanes and win fights. So you see Jax coming, you saw him setting this up, he's likely to continue split pushing, so you know eventually he's going to be down in this area. So why not just start walking over there so that you can hem him in? Once he passes Tribush, you walk into Tribush, you and Gangplank pincer move him and kill him, or at least force him out and burn a summoner spell. Since Gangplank warded this brush, you can be aware of where Jax is and where he goes if he's coming towards you. And that's kind of what ends up happening. He goes into the Tribush here once he sees Gangplank. And that's a situation where, like, okay, my gosh, is he coming toward me to gank me? Now that this is a 2v1, if Jax is coming mid to dive me, that's a 3v1 situation, and there's no way you're going to win that. So you need to either just leave defensively, or you need to try to go aggressive. Since he goes up into the Tribush here, you're keeping your eye on him, you're looking, where did he go? You don't know where he is. You need to assume that he is coming to kill you. Okay, there he is. Now you see him again. This is the time when you leave this lane. You go deal with Jax. This is gonna fall. There's nothing you can do about it. He outranges you, she outdamages you. If it was one of them, maybe you could hold it. But you need to kill this Jax, because he's going to kill Gangplank and or get the turret. He's just a gold machine right now. We need to slow his roll, and there's nothing you can realistically do here anyway. It's a lost cause. Let this go and roam. Move up here. You see Jax. You can move up here. You can move up into the Tribush. You start pinging to Gangplank to let him know you're coming. If you had started moving when he moved into the Tribush, and you kind of identified this situation sooner, you could have been like here. You didn't want to go super aggressive because you don't know if he's coming down to kill you, but you could have been here. And then when he comes around to attack Gangplank, you're already there. That might be a little bit aggressive, but that's an option. But now for sure that you see him here, now you can start responding to that. And even if Jax just sees you respond, that means he can't just do this anymore. He's not allowed to just freely beat up on Gangplank. He has to respect the fact that you might show up. So even if you just step into the fog of war, he has to respect that if he's smart. Or you can make your way all the way over here, hem him in, because he just camps out in here for so long. You end up just staying mid and dying, because, like I said, it's a 2v1, and there's nothing you can really do about it. I mean, even if you don't step out here and die out here, they're going to eventually push the wave into your turret, and they can kill you under the turret if they want to. So, there's no reason to stay here. So, roam up here, you can pinch your in Jax, and probably kill him between the two of you. Okay, jumping forward a little bit here. This is just going to be a general gameplay thing. So, low-level teams, or low-level players, rather, are notorious for a see hero, kill hero playstyle. So here, Malphite sees Vayne. He has a little bit of vision. You have a ward here. He knows that there's nobody, or he probably knows that there's nobody, like, behind him. Although he doesn't know that for sure. I mean, Kha'Zix could have snuck into the jungle through here and come up behind him. So he doesn't know for certain. But he probably feels pretty good about the fact that there's nobody behind him. But other than that, he basically has no idea. He knows there's nobody in this vicinity right here, and he's pretty sure there's nobody behind him. But for all he knows, there could be somebody right in this bush. There could be people waiting here. There could be people waiting here. He doesn't know where they are. I mean, I think he probably knows Varus is up here. But that's about it. So he does not have enough knowledge to be super aggressive here. Vayne might not be able to kill him. He doesn't have a lot of armor, so it's a little risky in the first place. He's not able to just kill her all by himself, so it's a little bit questionable as to why he's going aggressive anyway. And it's just a see hero, kill hero thing. He's not really thinking it through. What am I going to do once I catch this Vayne? I don't know. Probably lose the 1v1, I guess. So he's not really thinking it through. He ends up landing a good ult, and we'll watch this here. But again, there's no real plan. So Vayne condemns him, and he backs off. And then he sees you guys coming. So he's like, okay, here we go. I got teammates coming. I'm going to ult in. Here's an example of why Orianna is not a great low-level pick. At higher levels of play, Malphite sees you coming and waits for you to put the ball on him. Because he knows that if you put the ball on him, and then he ults in, and then you ult and W, Vayne is toast. So, again, it's just... This is just a difficult pick to play well at low level because nobody's thinking that way, and I'm not sure if you were thinking that either. I don't know if you are thinking that you need to put the ball on Malphite. So you know it's a lot to think about. You're not just thinking about your champion and how it fits into the team. You're thinking about your champion and how it fits into the team and how it needs to interact with the other. You know how your abilities interact with the other team, with the rest of your team's abilities in really complicated ways, and it requires coordination and timing and yikes. So there's just a lot to think about with Orianna. Anyway, Malphite probably, regardless of that, Malphite probably goes in a little bit early because you guys are still a ways out, so, you know, to actually follow up on his ult, by the time that you guys get in range, she's not knocked up anymore. So, again, it's kind of a see hero, kill hero. Throwing the skill shot here, always want to try to throw your skill shots where the opponent is going to be. She's probably going to run towards safety, which is either toward her turret or toward the brush. In this case, running toward the turret makes the most sense. So immediately her dodging toward this brush should be like setting off warning bells in your head. Like, why is she going this way? This is kind of away from actual safety. So why is she going this way? Especially as you see teleport coming here. So the first mistake was messing up killing Vayne. You know, not using your ult, not putting the ball on Malphite. The second mistake you guys make is that you tunnel on this. It's a see hero, again, see hero, kill hero. Vayne is alone. We can't see anyone else, therefore she must be alone. It's like, you know, the little kid playing hide and seek. He puts his eyes over, or his hands over his eyes. I can't see you, you can't see me. Because I can't see the enemy teammates, they must not exist. For, you know, for the space of time it will take to kill Vayne. Of course, that's not true. Most of the time when you're chasing somebody, they are running straight toward their team, and their team is running straight toward them, so you have a very limited window in which to kill them. So in this case, you see that Vayne is running, and you don't really have any meaningful CC to stop her. Malphite's CC is on cooldown. You can't move your ball for another second or two, so you don't have any real way to slow her down or to bring her back so you can kill her. She's going to keep running, and she's slippery. So at this point, she's escaped. You guys just need to back off and give up on this. But you don't. You tunnel and you chase. It's going to take forever to kill Vayne. It's going to give her plenty of time to run to safety. You have a teleport coming in here. Kha'Zix is coming this way, and again, you don't have the vision to know that this isn't happening, so you need to assume that it is happening. So, Vayne runs, she ults, and then everything goes wrong. So Malphite and Lucian realize that this is now a bad idea, and they leave. I don't know if you didn't see the teleport, or what you thought was going to happen, but they back off to safety, and you back off toward the lane. There's no safety here. You should have seen Jax. I'm not... I'll look at the Fog War here. Yeah, you can see Jax. So I'm not sure why you head this way. And not only do you head this way, but you keep going this way. The second that Jax pops in, you should have changed directions, but you don't. You keep going, and there's like no way this is... Even if you in some universe were able to kill Jax, it's not worth it, because they're immediately going to kill you. Like, they're right there. They're not just going to keep, running and wait for you to 1v1. Again, see hero, kill hero is really dangerous. Always be asking yourself, what could go wrong? What could go wrong in the next 5 seconds? Well, in this case, what could go wrong was that Vayne was running. Was that a teammate was running to save Vayne. 2 teammates actually, because Jax was teleporting in. That's what could go wrong. All of a sudden, this 3v1 is actually a 3v3, and it's a 3v3 where all of them are ahead of you. Like, maybe Malphite is sort of even with Kha'Zix, but he already blew his ultimate, and that's, and so he's not really anymore. He's not even, because he has more stuff on cooldown. So even in a straight 3v3, you guys probably lose. So unless you know for a fact that you have a numbers advantage, this is a bad idea. And you need to be able to look at the situation and see that it is likely to go that way. Yes, we caught Vayne. If we can kill her now, that's a good play. If she gets away, we need to abort immediately because of all the things that could go wrong. You don't know how many people are in this brush, or this brush, or this brush, or this brush, or, on and on and on and on and on. You don't know where the enemy team is. For all you know, they were all sitting in this brush. There were 3 people sitting in this brush waiting for you to chase Vayne. And then they just delete you. It turns out that wasn't the case, but again, you didn't know that for sure. And so chasing her blindly is really risky. Unless you're super far ahead, and no matter what they throw at you, you're going to win, which is not that common of a situation. So, anyway. Ask yourself what could go wrong. If it's a long enough list, if there's things that could go wrong that you are not going to be able to respond to and come out on top of, you have got to back off. And as you get better at the game, you'll get better at identifying those situations. You'll get better at that spidey sense tingling and going off, this is a bad idea, we need to abort. And again, going back to the point I made earlier about dice rolls and wanting to take control, you are wanting to roll as few dice as possible. This situation was rolling a lot of dice. We're chasing Vayne. We don't know where her team is. We're betting that they are not paying attention and that we're going to have all the time we need to chase Vayne into her jungle and kill her. That's a big dice roll. That's a big risk. This was, if you could have pulled this off, this was pretty safe. Not a lot of risk in killing Vayne in lane, because you do have enough vision to know that there's nobody that is in the immediate vicinity that is going to be able to stop you from killing her if you can kill her immediately. But the second she gets away, the list of things that could go wrong gets really, really long, and the number of dice you're rolling adds up and up, and it becomes way too much of a risk really fast. And you got to get better at identifying those risky situations and just backing off before they become an issue. Okay, so the rest of this game is pretty much just kind of the consequences of the early and mid game. To win this game, it wasn't just on you. Everybody kind of lost their lane. But to win this game, you would have had to start responding to the threats of Jax and Vayne and Kha'Zix a lot sooner. And I talked about some specific situations where you could have done that. There were a lot more in this game that I could have pointed out, but the principles are all the same. You need to be looking for chances to roam. You need to get your, broaden your vision so you're not tunneling on your lane and tunneling on just farming and just winning your lane. You got to be thinking about, how can I win the game? What could I do right now that would help my team win the game, not just would help me win my lane. Do I need to be roaming? Do I need to be warding? Do I, any of those, all of those things, all of the different things that you can be doing. Be really careful about chasing. Just because you see somebody and you can attack them doesn't mean it's a good idea to do so. Think through the consequences. Ask yourself what could go wrong. you're trying to think of the big picture. You're always trying to make sure that anything you're doing at a given moment is helping you and your team work toward the goal of winning the Nexus. If it's just stalling for time, if it's just going for a meaningless kill, if it's anything, obviously if it's sitting around defending a objective that can't be defended, like I talked about earlier, when you stuck by your turret when there was no real way you could defend it, obviously that's taking away from your team's chances of being able to win. So you need to identify those situations. You can do that by looking at your own replays. You can do that by obviously working with a coach like we're doing here. But as you get better, you'll be better at kind of self-identifying those situations and being able to nip them in the bud a bit and self-correct mid-game. So things I liked, your CS was actually okay this game. It's better than just about anybody else's. That's partially a consequence of sticking in your lane too much. And it's not good CS. You should have a lot more CS, especially earlier on. So keep working on that. Keep focusing on that. That is your primary source of income. It's the way. It's probably the simplest and most reliable way to outplay people at low levels. Warding is the other one. If you can have good warding habits and just be really consistent about putting down as many wards as possible throughout the game. You do never have 2 stacks on your yellow trinket as much as possible. The blue trinket is really strong right now. They keep nerfing it more and more to get it into balance, but it's still probably the strongest trinket right now. Having a pink ward on the map at all times. If you can be above average at warding and at farming, you will climb out of low silver at the very least. Even into gold, honestly, if you can get really above average at those 2 things all by itself, that can get you into gold by itself. If you can do those 2 things and start thinking about these decision making things, you'll hit gold no problem. And and building on top of that is more specific champion mechanics and matchup knowledge and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of other stuff that we could talk about down the road and in the future. But for now, focus on things we talked about in this video. And I hope that helps you succeed as you move forward. So thanks for giving me the chance to take a look at this game. I hope this was useful, and best of luck.